Ba-dee-da, ba-dee-da, ba-dee-da. Ba 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 da ba. Boo-dee-da. You know that. We people who are darker than blue, are we gonna hang around this town and let what others say come true? There are challenges in a city, and historically here there have been challenges. Within that challenge, there are other things going on that are amazing. I was speaking with Roger Boykin and Wendell Sneed, and there's the documentary South Dallas Pop, or Pop Dallas, I forget what the title of it is. KERA produced it, and I watched, subsequently I found that online and watched it, and because they were talking about the place where they jammed, and it's just escaping me, the Woodman Auditorium, and it was a place where musicians could go for jam sessions, which I had no knowledge of. We were talking about Red Garland earlier. This sort of underground scene of sorts that is going in spite of challenge and problems, and the creativity still flows. And I think I wish I had been plugged into that. That was a bit before my time in terms of being able to go out to a session. But I did know Allison Tucker later, the great musician Allison Tucker, and band leader who has passed on, who influenced so many musicians. But I really wasn't plugged into that. As a matter of fact, Shirley McFadder, I saw her and heard her later, and before her passing, and I'm just so grateful that I did, because that began to teach me about the music scene and what was going on here. Allison Tucker. I believe he was the he was the band director, okay. And I believe it was at Lincoln High School, which is kind of the home or the creative building ground for people like the trumpeter, the flautist Bobby Humphrey, for example, David Fathead Newman. I believe he was there with Allison Tucker. Allison Tucker could have come later, but this documentary is great to watch because it has a lot of information and some photographs that are. So I think as we reconnect with our history, it becomes more inclusive, and we all grow and we learn about our story instead of just his story. Mm-hmm. And that's where the liberation is, because we have the information and we say, oh. But it's interesting, I tell you, Dallas, I must say, this just came to my mind. When I was a high school student, I was a part of the executive assistant program. And it was a program, I remember our director, I forget his last name, but his first name was Mike. We could call him by his first name. We would go out and we would partner with an executive in the city, depending on what area we were interested in. So I was interested in communications. This gave me an idea if I would be interested in reporting. So I was at Newsroom, this show called Newsroom that Jim Lehrer started.
Jim Lehrer of McNeil Lehrer.
Yeah, can you imagine? Yeah. And so Lee Cullum was there, who is so outstanding, and it was just such a glimpse in on current events and what it took to be a reporter. And as you see, I decided to go the arts way. I'm a performer, but I'm still informed by current events. I mean, look at where we are now in terms of the President Obama, and the country has passed the idea of gender equity and not discriminating against same-sex couples and that sort of thing. So this is what I was exposed to as a high school student. So to have that kind of information so early and to, start processing it and realizing that there are different lifestyles in the world, there are different people in the world, and understanding tolerance and understanding equity. And I think just understanding my own experience here and some of the social issues that we have dealt with in Dallas in terms of desegregating the schools. We've got a marvelous magnet school now, and that idea of bringing people together and breaking down boundaries.
Boundaries.
Hey,
okay.
Good segue, huh?
Yes.
That was unplanned. But that's because I'm an improviser. That's what jazz does for you. You're able to improvise. And that's the beauty of it. And dance, of course, that taught me improvisation.
Right. Now that makes me want to ask about hip-hop finger.
Oh, yeah. Well, after college, I was so curious about the world and wanted to travel, so I started touring, going, visiting Europe, and one place I went to was Vienna, to Austria, and met musicians there, and we collaborated on that particular song, and we talked about leaving home in terms of, what was your question about leaving home? Why do you have to leave home to make a living? Or something like that?
In jazz in particular.
In jazz in particular. Well, anyway, we recorded the song, and it became very popular, that particular song. They called it acid jazz at that time. And I was sort of steeped into jazz, but I like groove and all of that. So the producer, Rodney, and I'm thinking of Rodney's last name, and I can't, but anyway, it was called Uptight Productions. They produced it, and it got on the radio, and then they started liking it in Britain. So it became very heady. They flew us to London, and we had to tour. We got to tour opening for Brian Ferry, and it's one of those pinch yourself moments. It was really fascinating. And basically the song came out of a story that it's many stories. That's the thing about writing. It's many stories. But I had met a composer, a young conductor, and he was telling me about having to go to war because at that time, I believe, what was Yugoslavia was splitting up. And he told me the story about the soldiers coming, the army coming to his home because they had to be conscripted, and they, saying, okay, we're expecting you to sign up or whatever. And so that idea of a runaway soldier, because he wasn't interested in being in the war. He was a pacifist of sorts, but he didn't want to fight in a war like that. So, runaway soldier, that's boundaries.
This land is my land. This land is your land. When it was their land first, whose world is it anyway? Ethnic division, potato delicious, and easier to hate. We cannot tolerate. So people die, and babies cry. We find out why, or we cry. As Martha said,
Runaway soldier, they say you lost your head. Runaway soldier, they say you're better dead. That's where that line came from, and I think it was informed by great writers, because for me, Marvin Gaye, for example, when he wrote Inner City Blues, or Gil Scott-Heron, or Roberta Flack, all of those songs, Donny Hathaway, John Lennon, Joni Mitchell, these people, and then other writers, I think they inform my perspective, and so I started working with it. That's how it came about.
I would think that Vienna would be a particularly charged place to be with that song because it's a concentrator for refugees from the Balkans and
That's a good
Yugoslavia.
point. Yes, and to see the diversity. Of course, they speak German or Viennese, they would say, because it's a little softer than German in terms of the pronunciation. But definitely full of people from Turkey. Not full, but there are many people from Turkey, from Hungary, and of course former Yugoslavia. So there was a lot of, which is probably, since it came out of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, what it was before, in a sense, because it was an empire in World War I. But and it's such a clearing post for trade and where it is and that sort of thing. And then you've got that artistic side, well, of course, there's a joke about Mozart. Like when you're driving down the street, people say, Mozart lived there. Mozart lived there. And then you realize it's because Mozart was struggling in the beginning. He had to move so many times. That's the real joke, so.
Running from the rent.
Yeah. Welcome to the artist's life.
Say you lost your head.
So was Boundaries, was that a pivotal song in terms of introducing you to new artists or collaborations, creating like future collaborative opportunities?
Yes, I would say so. It was a way to begin, to continue the journey. I was already on a journey, but it enabled me to meet people like Roy Ayers. And Roy Ayers had just been such an icon in my eyes. Everybody loves the sunshine, that whole thing. And just his whole, that ubiquity that record he put out, and that soulful groove. And he had come out of a jazz life. And I mean, not life, he still did jazz, but he was doing more, what would they call, traditional jazz, or straight ahead, vibes player. And I'll never forget when we recorded The Breeze, one of my songs, just watching him play those vibes. It was as if he was dancing. And I see him, and I think of Lionel Hampton before him. And I saw Lionel Hampton much later in life playing the vibes. I mean, I've seen him on film. You could see him on films, from Flying Home. But just that whole Lionel Hampton, Roy Ayers. So yes, to answer your question. And then Mulgrew Miller, the great pianist. I was able to draw him in on a track that I did called One for a Lady. And that was also fascinating to watch the process. I scored the poem, Nikki Giovanni's poem called One for a Lady of Pleasure, Now Retired. That's the name of the entire poem. And so
Could you give us a...
Oh yeah, okay. So the chorus is, let's see. She asks nothing, seems to have something to give, but no one to give it to. If ever she gave it to anyone. That's the chorus. Some small island birthed her, and you can definitely hear it on Reverb Nation. I've got it up on my Reverb Nation site, the whole thing. But I scored it, gave him the lead sheet, and he took it to a whole other level.
This is Mulgrew Miller.
Yeah,
yes.
He took it to a whole other level, which is what jazz musicians do. And it's that ability to, improvisation, the development of that. particular skill, which includes understanding theory, of course, practicing and listening. And I think that's the marvelous thing that music has done for me. Sometimes we come together and we play, and we may not have met before. For example, if you go to a jam session, you may not know the musicians, but you know this language, and you're able to have dialogue. You're able to commune, share, and create something in that way. So I'll include some of my favorite composers, like Duke Ellington, for example, Billy Strayhorn, who was working with Duke Ellington. We all know Lush Life.
Lovely, yeah.
I used to visit all the very gay places, those come-what-may places, where one relaxes on the axis of the wheel of life to get the feel of life from jazz and cocktails. From jazz and cocktails. That kind of
We haven't even talked about William Parker. We haven't talked
William
about
Parker, yes. Oh, yes.
Or Dave Burrell.
Dave Burrell, yeah. And I should have mentioned them. And I got caught up with the boundaries thing. But yeah. Well, speaking of William Parker, the Curtis Mayfield project was huge in my involvement with him, which is very much groove and funk and social protest and life stories and all of that. And it actually began, it must have been around early like 2002, 2003, we went to Paris, and we worked in a special jazz festival that was also a community festival called Bain Le Bleu, where we worked in the outer arrondissement, the outer sections of France, with some community, in different communities with children that were from countries like, primarily Africa, Senegal. They were from Paris as well. Some of them had been born in France, but oftentimes they were immigrants. And so we did Curtis Mayfield with them. They did a couple of songs with us, and there's actually a CD of it, and then we sing the Curtis Mayfield, but it's called the Inside Songs, so they're improvisations on Curtis Mayfield. But that particular record got into the Downbeat Top 10 in 2011, which was quite exciting for me. And subsequently, Dave Burrell played on that project, the pianist, the great pianist, and we collaborated on duo songs that he'd composed, and his colleague and partner Monica, who is from Sweden, and we toured all over Europe, and we went to Spain, we went to Rome. So I've been so fortunate to see the world from that perspective as a performer, and going into these marvelous venues in Portugal and the Azores, Tunisia. We were there before they had so much unrest. But it's been a fascinating, and it is a fascinating journey. I always see William as a visionary and a virtuoso. I think what I gleaned from him is the awareness that you can just grab music. It's in the air all the time. You just have to reach for it. And I mean, he puts together scores, but he also allows the artist to bring their message to that score, or their sound or their story in the way they deliver it. So it's been very, I keep coming back to that word, liberation.
One song that caught my ear from your collaboration with Parker was Cornmeal Dance.
Oh, Cornmeal Dance, yes. Yes. That's such a beautiful flower covered by the sun, mother, ascending north to the forever mountains. Yeah, Cornmeal Dance, absolutely. High sound, high silence. Yes, that's from the CD Cornmeal Dance. And those are his lyrics.
Is there any bit of song you'd like to give us to contemplate between now and Tuesday?
Oh, between now and Tuesday.
Something to take us out.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first thing that came to my mind was Equinox from John Coltrane. And we'll see, what we need is the bass line. Doom, doom, doom.
We're dancing.
Doom, 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 doom,
The people.
doom. And then I would say, the people were dancing.
Somebody said we've got to
The
be
people
the mother,
were moving around.
the father.
Somebody said we've got to be free.
The brother.
The mother.
Somebody said
The father.
we've got to be free.
Yeah. My sister.
As the wind, free like the sea,
Oh.
free like
Somebody
the
said we've got to be free.
carry me over
Thank you.
the river, over the river Jordan. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, let us march on till victory is won. Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe, double bay, da da hey, da da dway. Somebody said we've got to be free. Somebody said we've got to be free, free as the wind, free like the sea, free as the bird. Oh, carry me over the river, over the river Jordan. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun, let us march on till victory is won. The people were dancing. The people were moving around. Somebody said we've got to be free. The mother, the father, my sister, the brother standing on the corner. Somebody said we've got to be free. Somebody said we've got to be